Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you being here. James Kramer, Community Relations Manager for Clowes Memorial Hall of Butler University. And a little bit of housekeeping. We've got exits on both sides of the room. Restrooms are upstairs. We also have a gallery full of Scholastic Art and Writing Award winners. Those are 7th through 12th grade artists and writers who, these are the best in the country. We have about 50 pieces of visual art and then about 50 recordings or various accesses to the writing examples, which was a direct connection to what we want to talk about. If this is a gallery exhibit that would stimulate a conversation, what would it be about? Well, arts in the classroom is, I think, something that's very appropriate for us to be talking about and seeing how we can speak to others about. And hopefully the takeaway tonight would be to have a few talking points that will guide you when you're talking to others who may not understand or fully appreciate the value of the importance of arts in the classroom. So we can come away and be some of those advocates for that and have a greater understanding. So at this time, it's my pleasure to turn over to our moderator this evening. Thank you, who is going to be at any point fielding questions, repeating them back to us so we can capture that through the microphone up here on our filming. So we will have this conversation available on demand on our website in a few days or sooner, so you can go back and reference that and share that again with friends. But at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Matt Rund. Thank you.
So I'm the Performing Arts Department Chair at Fishers High School, and that's how I got involved with being here tonight. But I want to start off with a story. As we were talking upstairs, it sort of reminded me of something. So there's a book that's out called, I'm going to paraphrase it, it's called Stuff, My Dad Says, but the stuff is not stuff. But it reminded me of my dad. My dad's about 80, and he took his wife to a show at a little theater by Shelbyville called the Buck Creek Players, and it was a children's show. And he came home and he called me and was all excited about it. And then he said, "I don't know why we teach that in school for. Those kids were getting a good experience there." I'm like, "Dad, you do realize what I do for a living, right? You do realize that I teach theater." And so it made me think about, people really sometimes don't have a good idea of how important the arts are in education. It's not just giving performances, but it's what they are learning within that. So with that in mind, I'm going to have my panel introduce themselves and let us know who they are and where they come from, and then we're going to start asking some questions. So we'll start right here with Larry.
Greetings, everyone. Thanks again for joining us. We want to do the mics. This will work. Greetings, everyone. Thanks for hosting this, James, and Matt for being our moderator tonight. I'm Larry Ladd. I'm a professor in the College of Business. I teach strategy and the capstone strategy class for undergrads and also leadership for MBAs. And I'm also an artist as a later career activity, and we'll probably talk about that a little bit more.
Good evening. I'm Gary Beaulieu, and I direct the Internship and Career Services office here at Butler. So we work with students from all majors and all 6 colleges on Butler's campus on locating internships, making connections with employers, and hopefully finding and making a connection for a job at the end.
Good evening. My name is Arthur Hockman. I'm in the College of Education. I'm a professor of elementary education, and one of the areas that I focus my time and attention on is helping future teachers see the importance of the arts for every child. Excuse me. One of the things that I'll probably will be talking about in tonight is a school that I helped form in Kokomo, called Wallace, and it is a school in which the arts are a part of every subject area and a part of everything that these kids do, and it's a remarkable place and an example of what could be if we could have some traction in the arts.
Wow, looks like I need to be connecting with Arthur. My name is Cassandra Thomas. I'm the program director for Arts for Learning, and my role at Arts for Learning is incorporating arts into classrooms primarily. We work all the way from pre-K all the way up to high school, and we also work with community centers and other community partners.
So I'm going to start out, and anyone can jump in on any of these questions. The first question that I think that we need to discuss is, what is it about a student who studies the arts? What difference do they have than a student who does not study the arts in a secondary or elementary education?
Well, I mean, I would say a couple things. One is there's a book came out about 5-10 years ago called A Whole New Mind by Daniel Pink. And the basic premise of the book is that we cannot compete with countries like China and India in a number of ways because they have so many more people than we do, right? Even just 5% of their engineers, if those engineers are great, that number is huge compared to the numbers that we can produce, just the population numbers alone. What we can do, though, is produce engineers who can be creative, think divergently, think differently. And where are they going to get that kind of thinking? Where is that going to come from? It's from extended exposure to the arts. And these are people for whom it comes naturally, our arts educators. So that's one thing. The second thing that I think is important, there's plenty of research about the use and the importance of the arts. But one study that's kind of interesting that I think is useful for us to know about is Project Zero. And a lot of studies attempt to show how the arts help make us better readers and that sort of thing. This study, the results of this study was trying to show that the arts are important for their own sake, and they need not apologize for that. And I think there's a power in that for myself. I mean, as someone who works with kids a lot, I see a lot of kids who the only place that they have success is, with a visual artist. I work with a lot of kids who have exceptionalities. And the interesting thing that we find when we use the arts a lot is oftentimes those are the classrooms where you cannot tell who the exceptional kids are. Right? When they're moving, and they're learning math through movement or music, that sort of thing, you can't tell who's been identified or who has some kind of exceptionality because it levels the playing field, and sometimes it's the only place where that child can succeed.
Let me take another cut at it. I think the arts give a person, whether it's a child growing up, a young adult, as they're in college, there's two parts to it. One is in the third person as the observer. You walk through a museum, you might have a great docent that's sharing the story and the history behind the piece. You might watch a great theater play or a dance, a well-choreographed dance, and have an appreciation as an observer. But what the arts do, just like sports, just like other activities where you have to engage, is you also have a chance for a first-person experience. You might be the lighting assistant behind the scenes. You might be someone in the fourth or fifth chair as a violin, as a new performer. And I think or one of the people that just found that being a part of the chorale or part of the choir really gave you a sense of identity and a sense of meaning. We give all this attention in our society, I think, to sports and to other places where people participate. But the arts are also an access point. And I think we're even talking as were upstairs kind of sharing some ideas. We have thousands and thousands of young soccer players, boys and girls, getting an experience of sports and an identity at 5, 6, 7, and 8. Why can't that also be true about various arts experiences? The chance to find what it is to get better at something and to learn a new language, whether it's music, whether it's dance, whether it's theater. So I'm kind of big on that first-person experience.
Would anyone else like to add or move on? Or?
I would say from our standpoint, from the career services side, we talk to employers all the time, and we hear things that they say about students who have been involved in the arts for a very long time about the passion and the dedication that they have, the skills that they've developed through the use through being involved in the arts in some way, and being able to not only use. We have a lot of students at Butler that might be a music performance major and also be a biology major. So they might be at opposite ends of the spectrums, but we find that employers really like students that have kind of a well-rounded knowledge of a lot of different things, and they can speak creatively about what they do and the passion about what they do, as well as maybe some technical things that interest them as well. So employers really like students that come from that arts background.
I'm going to go with, because I know that we have some education majors in here tonight, so I'm going to ask an education question, and I'll let the two over there answer this. So, because I know the two education majors who are in here are not performing arts majors, how would you, one's poli-sci, the other one is math, how would you say to them, how would you incorporate art to make that important in their subjects? And we'll go down to you guys.
Well, art is a way in which you can use the arts to help understand particular subjects that one may be studying. It could be math, it could be science, language arts. Bringing in the artistic side of it allows you to be creative in your answers. It allows you to be creative in the way that you map out the problem. It allows you to be creative in your visual mind of how you're going to work out the problem. So to be able to incorporate the arts into, say, a math major or a science major is very ideal for a person that's majoring in those subjects. Being that they can use those arts to help them to master that subject and to help them to maybe go at it from different angles, see math differently, be able to see the creative side of it, be able to recognize that there's more than one way to get an answer, even with it being science, all the different types of critical mass that goes into science. And if you can add the arts into that, it can create some whole different solutions, some whole different directions in which you can take it. It can open your mind to different answers and solutions. So to be able to incorporate in that, I think is so ideal, and I think one would find benefit in doing so.
Let me go at that from a slightly different angle. So if you have those kids who are not majoring in math, you have a group that's majoring in math, and then you have a group that's not majoring in math, and we want them to get a foundation in math from pre-K all the way through college. So how do we help those kids? And one of the things that we find, just generally speaking in teaching, is that for kids who don't have a natural passion for something, sometimes they don't feel connected to the subject matter. It's hard for them to internalize it or make it feel personal to them. The arts inherently have that quality, right? It's easy to feel that it's personal when you're making a picture that is that you made yourself, or you're singing using your own voice, right? It's personal. It's unique to you. It's easy to internalize that. Well, that's why we integrate the arts into things like math and science and language arts and everything, because then for those kids who feel that some of this subject matter is too general and disconnected from them personally, when we integrate the arts, then it brings it in to them personally. So they're making a stop-motion movie to demonstrate a physics concept. And then all of a sudden, the making of the movie makes it feel real, personal. They connect joy to the learning, all of those kinds of things. So
I think what the arts also gives is that sense of I can learn a concept in science or math, but I get to apply it in the arts, and I get to actually use a concept, and arts is that bridge to action. It's the bridge to doing, and I'm struck by. I think it's Purdue that uses the "We Are Makers" as a part of the Boilermaker idea as an engineering school. Artists are makers. I've got to choreograph the dance, but I also have to market the performance and make sure people are at the ticket office and the box office. We might be actors and actresses in a theater production, but we also have to do the stage set or set up the lighting. And so I'm just struck that we can take a lot of what we learn in physics, chemistry, also in political science and in advocacy. A lot of great plays, a lot of great novels, a lot of our great screenplays that end up as movies are really about advocacy. Is it about social justice? Is it about civil rights? Is it the story of somebody that was a leader that was unique? And I guess to what both of our other panelists have said, I think it's that it moves people into that personal experience of, hey, I'm a part of this, and it connects to identity. I was struck that you have some of the Scholastic Arts and Writing Awards in front of you. This is this week in the New York Times. It's Robert Redford saying, I was 18 years old and I won an award for a sketch that I drew, and it profoundly affected my life. Wow, we never thought of Robert Redford ever having to worry about his identity, but it touched, moved, and inspired him at age 18 out of just something that he drew or something that he made happen. So I was just struck that there's that. I love how you guys said it. It moves it to that personal level.
One more plan question, and I'll open it up to the audience here. In the business field, and that's what we're going to talk about, how should employers or how should employees who are looking for jobs impress their employers with their art skills? Like, what can they bring out to get that job that they would learn through the arts, I guess is the best way to have that question.
It could start with a creatively written cover letter. It could start with a creatively formatted resume. It could start with hitting the employer on everything from handshake to Twitter to a number of ways of getting in touch with the employer, and that you showed the persistence and the follow-through, and that even in the way you presented your background and your resume, it might have had a little flair to it. What we're struck by, we hear over and over from our students that have a successful job interview. They'll go, I got in on maybe the content in my resume, that I took the right courses or have the right skill set. Sometimes we call it the arrows in the quiver, that you have the right skills that the employer's looking for. But a lot of what catches them is the small talk over lunch, and the idea that you could talk about the Colts, but you could also talk about what was the latest performance at Clowes, or a museum show that you saw that on an opening night at Idle-Jorg. And so it's the idea that Gary had said it before. Well, it's a form of being well-rounded, but that you bring some of your own personal side to it. And I'm struck that people might schmooze about my golf game or the fact that I like water skiing, but it also could be that, hey, I really enjoy going to the Repertory Theater or to the Phoenix and being a subscriber.
I would absolutely agree with all of that. I would add, I guess, in a little bit different flair that we talk to students all the time about you'll get in the door with your resume, but if you can't sell yourself to an interviewer, you'll never get any further. So it is really about maybe showing them what the arts has taught you about yourself, what it's taught you about your career choice, what it's taught you about the world in general that gives you passion. Employers see passion as something that really shows some excitement to the world and shows some excitement for what they do, and I think it's really important, and I think that's what the arts brings to you, and that's what the arts give to you, is that idea of passion, that you can really show what you learned from the arts and how it translates into your life now. And I think that's really critical for people who are interviewing to showcase that in the world.
One other little thing. There are the skills, the job skills that you bring to any job, but any prospective employer is looking for those intangible things, disposition that you bring, and I think things like being able to imagine, being able to collaborate, being articulate, those are things that you can demonstrate very clearly through your participation in the arts. You'll demonstrate them because of the arts, because when you are sitting there interviewing with the person, it'll show. But even when you talk about your participation in the arts, I think you can show how those skills were concrete and real, and that's what you'll bring to any context, including a business context.
And I'll take a more personal approach on that question. I have a degree in marketing and marketing distribution, and I really didn't use that degree coming up. I was pretty much became a homemaker, raising children and doing such. And when time came for me to go back into the job market, I was concerned. I was just like, well, I haven't really beefed up myself. I haven't really, took any more classes. I need to go back to school. I need to do this and I need to do that. So I put myself in front of some, I guess, some top business makers, some top business VPs of companies and things like that, and had conversations with them about the arts, in particular about Arts for Learning, maybe being on the board, or even talking to them about employment prior to Arts for Learning. And from that became some personal conversations about the credentials that I have and that I hold. And the follow-up conversation was, as I was thinking, you need a resume pretty much to put in front of someone to sell yourself. The feedback that I was getting is that, no, if I were you, I wouldn't spend my time going back to school. Honestly, not that they didn't value education, but you have everything from an artistic standpoint, the way you can articulate yourself, the way you can communicate your passion for the arts. That's all going to speak when you're sitting in front of that employer. So for you to go back to school, I see you having the same credentials as a person that has their doctorate. And so you might want to not worry about that at this point and continue raising your children, and then use your skills to get in front of that employer, and don't worry about what's on paper, but sell yourself. So I totally agree with what they're saying over here. It does speak to your personality, how you present yourself, the way you talk, the way you can incorporate the business side as well as your personality side that brings it all together and makes a holistic person. And that's the type of employee that employers are looking for.
So I'm going to open it up for questions from the audience, if you have any. Yes, ma'am.
Well, mine's not exactly a question, it's more of an observation, and you might have some comments. I remember when I was a sophomore in high school, and it was one of our last weeks in geometry. And all of a sudden, here was this photograph of the Mona Lisa, and in my geometry book. And I remember going up to the teacher, and I said, if this had been related to art, I might have studied for this class more, because I loved art. And the fact of thinking, if they had taught it from the viewpoint of teaching it in the form of art works and showing how it showed geometrical shapes and different types of things, the proportions, and why certain art was beautiful in some people's eyes because of the geometric makeup, I would have been more interested, because that was something that appealed to me. The other thing would be with math and music. I don't see where that's being taught together. And to me, math and music are extremely closely related. They could go into Bach. They could go into a lot of things. And I thought that would be something. The other thing was I was very interested in science, and I almost became a pre-med major at one point. And I was interested in how color and music and art can be used in healing. And there's certain colors that they use with various rooms and all that. I don't see enough of that. And so perhaps, you may have some comments on that. A couple of other things. I remember when I taught a creative writing course, I had kids do like manga books where they had to do their own. That meant they had to do the drawing, they had to do the book, and of course you started from the back and you went forward. And so some of them did that. Some of them did coffee paintings. I had instant coffee I made up because I had read when I was taking something with Asian art and literature where they used coffee. And so I thought, great. So I brought in paints, coffee, and we did coffee paintings. And then they would actually then do different things like whether it be poetry or something that would go with, on the coffee painting. And then the other thing was with poems where, you'd maybe So what I had them do was to get on iMovie, and they each had their netbooks, and so they had to do iMovie, and some of them did it separately, or they could do it in pairs or whatever, and they would have something with social justice, and it could be on homelessness, it could be on bullying, it could be on, a topic of interest. Those were the best essays and the kids loved it. So I think there's a lot of ways that it could be applicable. And this was at the high school level that I was talking about. But when I went to School 61, which is one of Butler's schools, I loved it. And I was there for about half a day, and was with a group, Delta Kappa Gamma. That whole thing is with doing things and relating art and sculpture and dance to the arts. So, I mean, to me, right here, you have it right there. And now with Shortridge, with the International Baccalaureate School, right across the street, just think what you could do with School 61, where your high school kids could be working with them, the little kids with that. And I'm sure you've thought through some of that with the relationship, but perhaps there might be more that could be done. We had a kindergarten in our high school, and the kids would work with those kids, and the science teachers would have them building things and doing things. The Spanish teachers would be doing things. So, I mean, there's so many different things you could do.
Let me speak to that a couple ways. I obviously I agree with that because that's what I'm teaching all the time. I'm teaching that very thing, and I can take you to schools where I can show you the power of that. I just want to add 2 points to what you're talking about. The first one is we know that kids learn in a lot of different ways, and a lot of times we are fighting against their nature when we force them to learn in ways that don't make sense for them. And we all have to do some of that in our work. It's true, but in my work, I work kind of in my own way. And as long as I get my work done, nobody really cares how I'm doing it. I figured out how to use my talent and skill, in a way that makes sense to me. We don't do that in schools. We force a lot of kids to learn in one way. So I totally agree with you, and I can show you places and schools where they are really trying to do that and make that happen. I'll tell you what I think one of the big issues is. One of the big issues that works against that is that because most of us go through school and the arts are only peripheral to our lives, so it's no wonder that we feel awkward moving with other people or in front of other people. We feel awkward being musical with other people or in front of other people, visual arts and so forth. And so because of that, then you have, second grade teachers or fourth grade teachers or high school teachers who don't feel comfortable doing that. The expectation is that when we go through school, we're going to do math. We expect to do that. We don't say that everybody's going to be a mathematician. We don't have that expectation, but we expect that everybody is going to have a minimum competency at math, but we don't really say that about moving, about music, and about all of those things. So I think in a way that's what's hard, because we have teachers who are licensed, and for them to integrate the arts, first they have to overcome their own art fear and lack of time and attention to the arts in their own lives. We have administrators, superintendents, and teachers who struggle with that, and that's why we have to get that population, and then we're going to have better traction in doing the very things that you talked about.
I love your example about the Mona Lisa and looking at that as a geometry problem, and then the other examples you gave of sort of you did that you just gave us an interdisciplinary journey, sharing your experience.
English teacher, but I also taught foreign language at different points in my career.
Yep.
But I know, and I would try to bring things in when I was teaching French, whatever I needed to. But it's like it could be in anything, and I feel sometimes the teachers feel like they're straitjacketed into
Yes.
a certain way of doing things. It's not just the kids.
And I think Arthur shared that a little bit. The teachers are sort of, and I've got to get through this program. Can I take a little side note and notice that there's 3 kids that really could relate to this in an artistic way rather than the mathematical way? And it's how do we free people up? I also think there's this sense that the arts is over there. It's, oh, I've got to go to the theater, I've got to go to the museum, and the idea that it's when you walk through the cafeteria and the cornbread really smells good, or it's that somebody wore a really great blouse today, and you can acknowledge them without getting in trouble for acknowledging the dress code, and the idea that how can we make it part of everyday life, and that it's a mindfulness, it's consciousness, and that it just sort of lets it in that might be another way where people can access a way to learn something. And I love how Arthur framed it, that people learn in different ways, and we don't really always pay attention to the multiple intelligences, that we might need to do the lesson in 4 different ways rather than in one way to get a point across, and to take the time to try it in different ways and give different people a chance to access it, and then they'll notice it again the next time. I keep going back and forth. My area that I talk a lot about is cooking, and do we even treat the cooking we do for our own health with some sense of passion and artisticness? Beginning, middle, and end in an hour, you can make something that has an aesthetic to it, and again, trying to view arts isn't way out there somewhere, and it's at a distance. And I think my term was, so much of it when I was a little kid growing up it was sort of the town and gown thing. If you could afford it, you could go to theater, you could go to symphony, and that only a certain set of people could access it. And I think we've come a long way, but how is it again, we could kind of keep nudging it along in a lot faster pace, in that day-to-day, how our day-to-day experience is also a way to kind of think artistically about things.
I'm going to add to what you were saying, that I've been teaching for 20 years, and there's always a new catchphrase, it seems like, but what's great now is the new catchphrase is authentic assessment. But it's good for us in the performing arts is that we do authentic assessment every day. And so now we have the math teacher and the English teacher and the science teacher coming to the performing arts asking us, how do we do authentic assessment? So now that interdisciplinary style is starting to creep back in. Whereas, 10 years ago when I started at Fishers High School, I had to change from doing a final presentation as my final grade to have an actual test, which I found was ironic. But now they're coming back that we can now do a presentation as a final exam. And they want everyone else to have some sort of presentation, some sort of authentic assessment. So the pendulum is swinging back towards us, which is good. And it's driven by the College Board, because SAT and AP, that's what they're looking for now, are authentic assessments. So, and that's being pushed by businesses. So that's where the push is coming from. So now we just need to jump onto the train and sort of drive it. All right, so I'm off my little...
example that you gave there too is also a lot of the authentic assessment is also doing reflective papers, having somebody say, what did you learn on this assignment, or what's the takeaway from the video clip you just watched. We have a number of courses in the College of Business that are writing across a curriculum or speaking across a curriculum. To have a student in finance have to write a 2-paragraph essay about net present value is really quite interesting, and it taps into, I need to be able to describe this in words that the layman could understand. We did one on just a 1-page memo on what explains the financial crisis, and it's amazing how you can start narrowing thoughts and really get it focused. And when they can be first person and they can share an idea in their own words, incredibly powerful tool for the assessment side of things.
I just wanted to add that I know at Arts for Learning, and this isn't about Arts for Learning, but we offer a program called Arts for Learning Lessons, or we actually offer, it's like a literacy-based curriculum that's called Arts for Learning Lessons. And we actually go into the classroom and teach teachers through these lessons, and then they can take what they learn to their classroom and incorporate it into their lessons. And basically these are arts infused lessons. And you wouldn't believe how hard it is for us to basically get into the schools and have these teachers take these lessons, and these really are professional development opportunities for these teachers. But it's extremely difficult to do that. But I think that provides a basis, for getting teachers started into learning how to incorporate the arts into the schools. It's a fact that our teachers have been taught to teach to the test, and that's what they've been doing for years. So to bring any other creative curriculum or any creative arts into that, they can't see how to do that or how to make that happen. As I go out to my schools and work with schools in central Indiana, Johnson County, I mean, I have over 400 schools in my district. I'm constantly talking to teachers to say, I get that, I understand that, but I'm not the one to do it. I'm not the one to make that decision. A lot of times it's decision makers that could come into play. It interrupts the curriculum that has to be taken, when we're doing our planning, but you want to be there when the planning takes place, but you're not a part of it. I mean, so there's a lot of barriers that I run into just in general, just going out and speaking with teachers and even principals of schools. So I just think those barriers exist, and I think it's just time we just start, breaking those barriers down.
Yes, sir. So the question is, just so they can hear it, basically, how can we create a pipeline or a little league, if you will, of arts to help support arts education or arts in school?
Well, I think multifaceted sorts of things. If the experience that children have in the arts growing up is that once a week they see the person down the hall who teaches music, that sends a message. We're sending a message as a society about the place of arts in our lives. It's peripheral. It's a discipline that is lesser than other disciplines. We're sending that message. Plus the fact we only have 2 arts areas in our school, in our elementary school. We only have music and visual art. Theater and dance are obviously not as important as those 2, clearly. So that's one issue, that it has to have more equality in our curriculum, have to have more balance. And we as citizens have to press for that in order for that to change. I mean, the mere fact that there's even discussion whether they're trying to race the arts, is an issue. But beyond that, we have to advocate for its importance in its own right. It shouldn't need justification. I mean, we do integrate it, and we do think, say that's important, but it has value and weight on its own and doesn't need any further justification. So that's one way. The second way is, as I was talking about, it has to be integrated in everything that we do. We integrate, as elementary school teachers, we integrate the rest of the content, but we are not comfortable integrating the arts because, again, it's the art fear that a lot of people bring to the table. So we have to overcome that by making that a part of teacher education, a natural part of teacher education. How do you teach math through music? How do you teach math through dance, visual art, et cetera, and all of the disciplines? And then it will become a natural part of the curriculum, and every child will experience, whether they're in first grade or 5th grade or high school, the arts will be everywhere. They'll be for everyone, and everyone will be doing them.
I'm going to try another cut on that. I think it's about mobilizing not-for-profits and non-governmental organizations. I think about Little Leagues. An example, I live in Nora, and First Baptist does a thing with soccer and Little League, and a number of programs. That's their ministry, is youth sports programs of various kinds. We have a group called Arts with a Heart. There's a number of little not-for-profits that it's just like you start up a Little League program. How could we do something not to take away from what schools do, but to sort of supplement or complement? And could there be a movement, or could there be a set of activities where maybe it's for every farmer's market that is going on, you have a 3 or 4 hour art experience that's part of a farmer's market, and whether it's teenagers or other, the Heron School of Art, visual art majors are there. And I think of the examples even when they're, some of the community fairs where there might be face painting and other kinds of things that are going on. How can we, I guess, get it out, stand on the shoulders of what could happen in school, but create leagues of their own or activities of their own. And whether it's a portable system, we had a conference about 6 months ago, and it was the Children's Museum of Hawaii, and basically it's two old bread trucks, and it's kites, and it's portable art that moves in a panel van to different venues around the Big Island. And I'm just struck that maybe that's how we have to get it out there and out into the streets. What role could we play with docents and others that might be part of our museums and say, hey, they're just like we do a day of service once a quarter or once every year, why not have a day of art in the streets? And just the idea of could we create some discrete events using the networks that are already there?
I like that idea of having a movement. I feel like one of the best things we need to communicate now is that art is not just dance, music, and art class. I mean, that's what I think the general thinking is, or a general consensus is out in the community, is that people do not go beyond those general special areas that they've had in school once or twice, or that have been taken out of school even, that those are just, that's art and that's all that. So if I'm not playing an instrument, then I'm not doing art. If I'm not in art class, I'm not doing art. So I think that's one of the things we can start communicating, and maybe even having a movement to say is that art is more than just those specialized areas. Art is any and everywhere.
What are you doing to encourage your kids that are education majors? I was never an education major, but I taught because I'm actually a Butler grad, got my bachelor's, I got my master's. I have over a year also from IU. It would be probably a bachelor's plus 60 at this point. But my question is, what are you doing to help kids that are in the teaching program right now so that they are incorporating all different types of art? Because I know over 20 years ago, we were doing that. I was team teaching at Tech High School with a history teacher. We had an American Studies class, and we had an American experience. And so what we did, we had kids that were writing things for newspapers and broadsides. We had kids that were performing. They were developing their own little thing as a poet and doing poetry readings. We all learned how to do the Charleston. We had a couple people come in to train us because that kinesthetic thing is important too. As you said, it's not just art and music. And I mean, I've always felt that. So, I mean, that's nothing new. I think that a lot of teachers feel that, but I think they've been funneled into thinking, oh, you can only do this. They can do more. But that has to be taught.
So
Every student who graduates from Butler University with a license is getting an experience in arts integration, and they're learning that, and they're learning it through doing. They're having experiences out in the school. We have both our lab school, the one you mentioned, and then we have a school out as the one I mentioned in Kokomo, where they go and see it actually being done. So they are getting that. One interesting thing that a lot of people don't realize, that in the standards for elementary school teachers, we are required actually to teach the arts. It's in our standards for the general classroom teacher. It's there. I mean, of course, it's not focused on because the standardized test doesn't focus our attention on it. And a lot of teacher education programs ignore that. But the standards that guide our licensing tell us we do need to integrate the arts. So it should be in every teacher education program. It isn't, but at Butler, students will get that.
What about the high schools?
Um, at the high school level, you know, the challenge at the middle secondary level is there's so much content coursework that they have to take in addition to their courses on pedagogy. Fortunately, the people who are teaching our pedagogy courses here are very creative teachers and very creative thinkers, so they integrate as much of that as they can. But it is more of a challenge at that middle secondary level because, for example, the math teacher, the typical math teacher here, has to take all the same math courses as the math major, and then take all of the education courses on top of that. So we're squeezing it all in. Those people have no time for any electives or that sort of thing, you know.
I want to also
did it in IBO program, and I was teaching that at Northwest, International Baccalaureate. It has things where you're supposed to have all that as part of it, and where you would have like the food part, as well as the dancing, as well as, maybe it's just a different way of thinking about things.
Well, they all go to Shortridge. All of our middle secondary students will go to Shortridge, which is an IB school. So.
Yeah, I know.
But-
I want to draw a parallel because we're talking about what happens in K through 12, and the thing we notice here at Butler as well as K through 12 is what are the co-curricular experiences? We've had, I think, 4 children's books done in the last couple years as an interdisciplinary project that cuts across business, education, pharmacy, fine arts, with the idea that students aren't getting a grade, they're not making money, but they're crowdsourcing the book. It's one on diabetes, one on, I think, peanut allergies. They're getting ready to do one on asthma. They're not doing it for a grade. They're doing it for the intrinsic chance to be on a team putting together a book. And I think that there's, what we see in business is this notion of the entrepreneurial mindset. Think about what artists do, or whether you're a dance choreographer or a visual artist that has to market your stuff. You're making something, or you have an idea. You put something on paper, you make something visual, you do a little video or a movie, but you've also got to go out and market it and get an audience to be willing to pay something for it. And I'm just struck that the parallel is so striking between what artists do, especially those that we know as art entrepreneurs, that it's so similar to a business entrepreneurship side of things. And again, we can do some things in the classroom. We've had both an MBA experience and an undergrad experience where we have students go out literally and dumpster dive to do make a piece of art using recycled materials, but it's really a study of what people throw away. And one of our sustainability projects last year is we really looked at a couple dumpsters at the end of a weekend on campus and did an inventory of what was in there. And wow, that not a pleasant experience, but eye-opening in terms of what does that give a few people a feel for around what is thrown away, how much of it is reusable if it's separated, and then make something with what you found. And again, they might not be, it's a one-off classroom experience, but the chance to do stuff that might not always fit in what you have to cover content-wise, but you create we've had Recycle Mania across fraternities and the dorms. There's other events that you can kind of bring some of the idea of this interdisciplinary or artistic appreciation in.
Real quickly with IBO, I teach IB theater at Fisher's. The thing with IB, it's a great program, but even in IB itself, they don't have to take an art. They can take another language or another science. So, it's something that we as educators need to push, that they need to have that area 6 and not be able to choose another science or another social studies.
Why can't the scientists, the math teacher, the English teacher, the foreign language teacher be teaching the arts as part of their curriculum? Because that's what I did. I mean, I just did it. That's the only way I could teach. I couldn't just teach, the content that was, presented. I had to vary it, switch it up, have the kids do different things. I mean, that's the only way I could teach, regardless of what it was. And it seems to me that instead of having it saying, okay, you will have a separate course, have it where all the subjects are teaching the arts. I don't know, I mean, I don't think it
I-
should be.
I would agree with you, but at some point you have to have a content expert that knows all the ins and outs of whatever that subject is.
Well, I'm
And,
saying
and I
content expert. Um, because I was a content expert in English, in grammar, in writing, creative writing. I did things where the kids would do the reflective writing and had kids coming back saying, "I'm so glad you taught that. You were the only one who did." And that's why I got an A at DePaul in my, English class, where the others were struggling, because I had done it as a habit pattern. But I'm saying that you can also teach the arts in your content area and still do the content. But you can teach it in a way that has that diversification, where you can change it up a little bit. So that's what I'm saying. Instead of having it where the science teacher is just teaching science, have him do projects where he's hitting all the arts at different points.
I think we have time for one more question from.
Well, Ms. Thomas, you said it was difficult to kind of bring this all together. I just wondered if that's what she's getting at. Just as a layman, I just wondered why our education system isn't getting better, bringing all, particularly underlining art and bringing it all together with sort of that emphasis.
Well, I think she absolutely has great skills. I think she's one of a kind. No, we do have teachers out there that get it, and it to me that's what it looks like. She gets it, she understands it, and she's able to do it. And I just think for others, it's a stronger move for them. I think it's they struggle with being able to do that and how they do that and how they even get started. I get some of those questions is how do I make this happen? How can I incorporate the arts in the school? They do not have any idea. Love the idea, want it for their students, but do not even know the first step of how do I go about engaging my students in such a way. And to them, it actually looks like a big task. But for you, for someone it comes natural, then it may be easier. I totally agree. It's kind of the way I raise my children at home. If I don't put any art into it, I mean, everything I do with my children down to when they learn their names, we made songs and created songs to their names. I incorporate art, so I'm totally there with you. Everything we do it's made learning so much easier for them. They're so much funner. They enjoy just about everything that we do, whether it's boring to them or not. We find the fun in it. So, yeah.
I think the schools that we have are the schools that we want as citizens. So until we as citizens, do a better job of advocating and saying that the arts are important to us in two ways. One, in this integrated way you're talking about, but also we have to support all these art specialists too. Make sure that their place is strong and secure in schools, and if anything, we expand it so that that children have multiple ways to experience the arts. But it's really on us as citizenry, the schools, this focus on testing that we can complain about. It's on us, really. We elect people, we elect our school board members, and it's up to us to question them and say, this is important to me, and I value this in my community, and have ready some good arguments as to why this should be important in my community. Whether I have children or not, it should be important to me.
I love how you said that. We get the schools we choose, and I think there's something in the way you described it. You are one of a kind, and maybe I think you shared a lot autobiographically that really comes from the Mona Lisa and the geometry. I think that there was something about the way you saw the world or the way you accessed things, and I think it's how do you create experiences for future teachers? How do we create experiences for parents? That parents wouldn't think twice about, well, I'm going to sign up my kids for the YMCA. They're going to learn how to swim. They're going to be in traveling soccer. Let's sign up for Fishers or Dynamo soccer. They do that, or maybe we'll do a summer class at the Art Center, or a summer stock theater kind of experience. And sometimes it's about a parent learning that there's opportunities or maybe is it saying we have YMCA programs during the summer, and hundreds of kids at our YMCA's. It really is the daycare center, and it's the alternatives to school for working parents. Where are art programs at Jordan Y and at the downtown Y and at the Fort Bend Y, where it's again, how do we make it accessible? Some of it is incumbent on the schools to do something, but I think there's a richness in our community to saying that there's other organizational alternatives. I think Arthur had put it, another thing he said, it's what's a conversation for action that we could be? Is it about, should we do once a semester, should we do an arts workshop for future teachers or for current teachers and bring them back and get them connected with professional artists? Should there be, a set of experiences that we create in the community at a bigger level? And again, it might be that one-off. It might be somebody's inspired by hearing a visiting writer. Somebody else is inspired by walking through the art museum with a really good docent that just connects you in a unique way. I was thinking about the example that I work a little bit with our pharmacy faculty and our health faculty, and the idea that now pharmacists are part of grand rounds. So you're training new doctors and physicians, and pharmacists are with them because there's so many complicated issues and drug interactions and all that. Well, maybe our physics teachers ought to have an artist in residence. What are the one-off things we could do? Is this a series of brown bag lunches here at Butler? Is it some kind of weekend event that you create where maybe it's aspiring teachers and ones that have been out there for a while and create a set of experiences for them? We put them up on the high ropes course. Maybe we should do something in the art museum.
I just wanted to add, when you were talking about the YMCAs, it's interesting. I had a conversation with them, and I've been around at several of the YMCAs trying to get our programs into their summer program. And at one point in time, we did so. We had some success with it. It was, I don't know, maybe 5-6 years ago. And no one signed up for our classes because that's how the YMCA runs their classes. They base them on whoever, the kids get to pick and choose what they want to sign up for. But unfortunately, our programs did not have the most appealing names to go with them, and so they wanted to pick something as simple as jewelry making, and we that's just not something we're going to offer because we're arts and education. But those type of barriers we ran up against, and that may come from our society not being educated about the arts and what they can do and what they're designed to do, and how we can take it a step further, and how that may just be an activity for a kid, but we're talking about a creative learning experience for a child, and that's what we're trying to bring. But it wasn't appealing to those students that were signing up for summer programs at the Y.
Well, it looks like we've ran out of time here. I'd like to thank the panel for coming in and discussing this important issue. And I'd also like to thank the audience for coming in and asking some great questions and sharing with your interest of this very important topic. So thank you guys, and have a good night.